All right, so what we're going to talk about today are the other three trig functions that we haven't already talked about. There are 6 total. We've talked about sine, cosine, and tangent. We have 3 more to discuss, okay? Those other 3 are what we call our reciprocal trig functions. So those do have to be memorized, but we do have a way of kind of helping us to remember them. Ready? Say yes. Okay. All right, tangent. So we already know what tangent is, right? What's tangent? What's the ratio? Or sine over cosine, right? Okay, so we know tangent is sine over cosine. You do have to write this down, okay, in your notebook or in your calculator. And the shorthand is tan. We don't see it written as tangent most of the time, okay? All right, so secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So secant you're going to see is cosine, 1 over cosine of theta. Okay, it's the reciprocal of cosine. The way you'll see that written is SEC. What do you think cotangent is? The reciprocal of tangent, yeah. So there's a few ways we're going to write this here. 1 over tangent, or we know tangent is sine over cosine. If we're talking about reciprocal, what other way can I write cotangent? Good, cosine over sine. Okay. And the shorthand for that, for their notation, is COT. Last but not least, cosecant, what is it? Cosecant. We've used cosine, we've used tangent, sine. 1 over sine. Shorthand, CSC. Okay. And these have to be memorized. Got to know them. Okay, so you want a nice, easy way to remember these? Yeah? All my miserable students today? Got their grumpy pants on? Holy. Okay, hit your trig button. Hit your trig button. Trig button, hit your trig button. Yes, you have to be holding your calculators to hit it. Okay. All right, so notice sine matches up with, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Sine matches up with, say it, cosecant. Cosine matches up with secant, and tangent matches up with cotangent. So they're nice in line and in order, okay? Sine, cosine, tangent, sine, cosine, tangent. Okay, now, during the Regents exam, this block of 6 on the end over here is going to be grayed out. You will not be able to use it on the Regents exam, okay? It'll be grayed out. You'll still be able to see it. You just can't use it. Why? Because New York State says we're not allowed to use those keys. We just do what they say.
Will there be content?
Yes. Well, you'll have to know how to write cosecant as 1 over sine. It's not difficult. You just have to remember it, okay? Okay, so that's a nice, easy way for you guys to remember these things. So let's go to the next page and learn how to use these. Now, these take practice, and they can be tricky, so you have to be patient. You have to go step by step when you're dealing with these, all right? So we want to consider what we've done with sine and cosine, and we want to evaluate each of the following and express our answers in exact and simplest form. Now, exact means I do not want decimals. I want it written as a fraction. I want it written in terms of my radicals. I do not want a decimal. Understood? Okay. So let's look at the first one, tangent of 45. Okay. So here's my first step. And you should write these steps down. Step 1. You're going to determine the quadrant that the angle is in. What quadrant is it in? First quadrant, yeah. Step 2, you're going to determine the reference angle of the angle. What's the reference angle for this one? 45, yeah. That one's nice and easy for us. It's already done. Step 3, we're going to determine the sine. Okay? So based on what quadrant it's in, based on the trig function itself, is it going to be positive or negative? Okay? Yeah, since I'm in the first quadrant, we know what's positive in the first. Everything. Okay, so I know my answer is going to be positive. Okay? Step 4, we're going to determine the values. Okay? All right, what's tangent? Yeah, sine over cosine. Good. So essentially what I'm looking for is I'm looking for sine of 45 divided by cosine of 45. All right, and we've done these. We did that chart. Remember the chart that you will be quizzed on tomorrow? Okay, did you catch that, what I just said? Remember the chart that you will be quizzed on tomorrow? Okay. All right, what's sine at 45? Quick, you should know it. Good job.
Wait, sine.
Yes. 45, guys, this should be the easy one. Radical 2 over 2. What's cosine of 45? Good. What's anything over itself? Done. So what's tangent at 45? 1. Okay. That's not bad, right? That's an easy one. Oops. Okay. Second one is secant at 60. Okay, first step, quadrant. First quadrant. So I know my answer is going to be positive. Yeah, so in the first quadrant, everything's positive. Second step, reference angle. 60. It's already the reference angle, right? Step 3, determine the sign. We already did that. We know it's positive. Step 4 is determine the values. All right, so secant goes with what trig function? What reciprocal is it? It's cosine, okay? So here's the easy way to do it. Here's what I need you to think of. We know that this is the same exact thing. We know that, okay? What's cosine at 60 degrees? 1/2. So we get 1 over 1/2. All I have to do to solve this is flip it. Take the reciprocal of the denominator. What's the reciprocal of 1/2? 2. Done. Reciprocal of 1/2? Okay. So all you did is I determined, I know cosine of 60 is what? 1/2. Okay. So if I'm looking for secant, secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Say it again. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. What's the reciprocal of 1/2? 2. That's all. So find the function value and flip it. Reciprocal of a fraction? No. The reciprocal is you take the numerator and the denominator and they switch places. So, okay. You never know what you're going to have in the numerator. You're not always going to have a 1. Yeah. Okay. What's the next one, guys? Oops. What's the next one?
Cotangent 150.
Okay. All right, first step, quadrant. Second quadrant. Second step, reference angle. Yeah, 30, good. What's cotangent? Or? Yeah. And most likely we're going to be using cosine over sine. Okay. You have to rewrite it using its reciprocal. Okay. I guess we should have a intermediate step in here. Rewrite. All right. Let's determine the sign. Second quadrant, cotangent, positive or negative? Second quadrant, cotangent. Negative, because what's positive in the second? Sine. Sine goes with what? Cosecant. Okay, so we know we're going to have a negative answer. Good. Cosine at 30. I didn't like have you memorize these just for fun, guys. Square root of 3 over 2. Good. Sine at 30. 1/2. What the heck do I do with that? Yeah, multiply by the reciprocal, right? That's a complex fraction. We don't like complex fractions. So we have to multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. So negative square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. Good. Both simplify, and I'm left with negative radical 3. Good. Nice job. These are tricky. They take time, and they take practice. Okay. What's the next one? Do I like 3 pi over 4? What am I more comfortable with? I like degrees, don't I? How do I determine what that is in degrees? Easier. Pi is 180. So how do I figure out what it is in degrees? Yeah, I got to put 180 in for pi, okay? So 3 times 180 divided by 4, Stephen, is what? I'm sorry, honey? 135, thank you. Okay, so this is the same thing as cosecant of 135 degrees. Okay? All right, I want you to finish it from here. Okay, and we'll come back to it in a second. Okay. Reference angle. Actually, what quadrant? We'll start with that. Second quadrant. Good. Reference angle? Awesome. So, second quadrant, cosecant, positive or negative? Positive. Great. What is cosecant? What reciprocal trig function is that? Sine. Good. So we're going to do 1 over sine 45. And we know it's positive. What's sine at 45? Good. So we get 1 over radical 2 over 2. And I know I need to do what? 2 over radical 2. Do I like it? It's ugly, right? How do I fix it? Multiply by, and I get two radical 2 over 2, which reduces 2. Awesome. Radical 2. Okay? So they're kind of lengthy. They're not that difficult. It's just remembering to do all the steps, right? Okay. And the next one is, what's the next one? Tangent of pi. What was it? Tangent of pi. The next one was cotangent of 5 pi over 3. All right, so why don't you go ahead and try those two, and then we'll go over them together. All right, tangent's what? Sine over cosine. So we're talking sine of 180 divided by cosine of 180, right? What's sine at 180? 0. Cosine at 180. 0 divided by negative 1. Done. Remember, C comes before S. X comes before Y. Okay? All right, cotangent of 5 pi over 3. What's the first thing I want to do? Yeah, I want that in degrees. It's just easier for me to look at. What is it in degrees? 300. Good. So all you had to do is plug in 180 for pi. Okay. Cotangent of 300. What quadrant am I in? Fourth quadrant. 300 degrees, right? What's reference angle? Great. 60. What's cotangent? 1 over tangent or cosine over sine. And that's the one that you guys are most likely going to use, is that cosine over sine, because we don't have those values for tangent readily available to us. We know our cosine and sine. Okay? Okay. Fourth quadrant, cotangent, positive or negative? Negative. Awesome. Fourth quadrant, cosine or secant. What are we doing? Cotangent. So that's negative. Okay. I'm sorry. All right, cosine at 60 degrees. Cosine is x, 1/2. And sine at 60. What the heck do I do with that, guys? Good. Multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. Careful, guys. Yep, 2, simplify. Yeah, don't move. A lot of you, I very often see you get an answer of this, and then for some strange reason you tell me the answer is negative radical 3. Just like 1/3 is not the same thing as 3, these are not the same thing, right? If I have 1/3 of something, it's less than having 3 of something. They're two completely different values. You can't just flip that because you don't like the way it looks. And a lot of you do that. You got to be cautious with that, okay? Do I like the way that looks, though? Why? Radical in the denominator. I don't want that. How do I fix it? Good. Multiply by that conjugate, right? Negative radical 3 over 3. Okay. Okay. So, which of the following has the closest value to secant of 52 degrees? Now, we can find these values in the calculator. When we find values in the calculator, they're going to be approximations. They're not going to be exact. If we ask for exact value, you got to do it the long way, okay? If we're just getting decimal values, you can do this in your calculator. So I'm going to teach you how to put it in your calculator. You guys ready? All right, add a calculator page, please. All right, if we're talking about secant of 52 degrees, I have to make sure that my calculator is set up to do this in degrees, because we have two options. We have radians and we have degrees, right? We use radians when we have things that are written in terms of pi. When we're like 5 pi over 2, we would be in radians, or pi, we would be in radians. Whenever we have just our basic number with a little degree symbol, we have to be in degrees. So the way we fix that, or the way we make sure we're in degrees, you're going to hit your dock key. Everybody needs to do it, because you have to make sure you're in degrees. Okay, dock. You're going to go to, what do you think? Yeah, choice 7, settings and status. You want document settings, choice 2. And you want to make sure your angle says degree. If it doesn't, please change it and then make it default. Okay. You good? Okay. So we need to do secant of 52, right? Now I told you guys we can't use the secant button on our calculator, so we have to write it as its reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of secant? Say it again? Yeah. Okay, so you're going to you're going to put it in your fraction template. 1 over yep, hit your trig key. You can use cosine. And you're going to put in 52. And hit enter. So the approximation is 1.62, okay? So now if this is a multiple choice question and they ask for the value of cosecant of 30, you could very easily pop that into your calculator, and if their answers are an exact value, you could match it up with its decimal approximation. Okay, so that's a really good way to check yourself. No reason to ever get those wrong. Yes, dear. Press to test, yep. No. Oh, no, these 6 in press to test, you will not be able to use. You'll be able to see them, you won't be able to use them. Okay? Okay, sine, cosecant. Cosine, secant. Tangent, cotangent. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes, absolutely. And you'll have to. You guys will have to be able to go back and forth between degrees and radians on your own without anybody telling you to. You're going to have to know when to do that. Okay? All right, so at which values, at which of the following values of x is not in the domain of y equals cosecant x? What's cosecant again, guys? Good. All right, so here's my concern. Not in the domain. Domain means all the x values that are being used, right? So if something's not in the domain, that means the function doesn't exist there, or we get an undefined, okay? How do I get undefined? 0 where? In the denominator, right? So my concern is, where does sine x equal 0? So where does sine equal 0? That's my concern. Where does sine equal 0? At 360, yeah, where else? 0 and 180. Okay, I have 3 locations where sine is equal to 0, or 3 locations where cosecant is going to be undefined. Okay, actually more than 3, because remember, this is a pattern that goes on infinitely, right? So I have 2 of the choices here. I have 0 and 180. When there's a square box, that means you can select more than one. Okay. Okay. You guys have an extra page. Just skip it. You're going to go to this one. All right, so because of each of the 4 functions is dependent on sine or cosine, what you're going to see wind up happening is wherever a trig function is positive, its reciprocal is also going to be positive. Wherever a trig function is negative, its reciprocal is also going to be negative. So that all students take calculus still applies. We're just going to add on to it its reciprocal trig functions. So first quadrant, what's positive? Everything. So we're talking cosine, secant, sine, cosecant, tangent, cotangent. Everything's positive there. Okay. Second quadrant. What's positive? Sine and cosecant. Yeah. You should be writing this down. Third quadrant. And? Good. And fourth quadrant? Awesome. Okay, so wherever a function is positive, its reciprocal is also positive, and vice versa. Okay. You guys ready? Okay. All right, so determine the sign of the following trig function in the quadrant specified. Tangent beta if beta is in quadrant 2. So tangent beta if beta is in quadrant 2. Quadrant 2, negative. Yeah, tangent is negative in the second quadrant. Okay, so you're just looking at the trig function, looking at the quadrant, deciding if it's positive or negative. Okay. Negative, yep. Secant and, I'm sorry, cosecant and sine are positive in the second. All right, secant in the fourth quadrant. Positive, good. Secant in the fourth is positive. Cosecant in the second, positive. Great. For any angle alpha, it is known that tangent of alpha is greater than 0. What's greater than 0 mean? Greater than 0 means what? Positive. Greater than 0 means positive. What's less than 0 mean? Negative. Okay. So I know for the angle, tangent is going to be greater than 0, which means it's going to be positive. The terminal ray of the angle must fall in what quadrant? So in order for tangent to be positive, where does the angle have to be in what quadrants? 1 or 3. Tangent, third quadrant. Okay. Okay. So now this is one of those ones where we have to set up the little axes and put the check marks to decide where our solution lies. Okay. Cotangent is less than 0. What does that mean? Negative. Where is cotangent negative, guys? 2 and 4. Right? Cotangent's negative in 2 and 4. Positive in 1 and 3. Secant is greater than 0. Positive. So where's that going to happen for secant? 1 and 4. What do they have in common? Fourth quadrant. Which one of these angles is in the fourth quadrant? There's your answer. Okay. Your homework tonight is pages 25 and 26 in your packet. Okay. Don't forget number 2 on the weekly project, you're using y equals a sine bx. That wasn't in there. You need that to do number 2 for weekly project. A sine bx. Okay.